Hello everyone, we're back for some more practice with the quadratic formula. And again, this is your quadratic formula up here. We're starting on continuing on page 10 in your packet. Oops. Okay. So the thing I like about the quadratic formula, it looks a little scary, but it works every single time. You don't have to worry about trying to figure out which way to factor or changing the equation or anything like that. You just want to get everything to one side, tell me what A, B, and C are, and plug them in. So this one looks a little different. All right. Whatever's with x squared, that's your A. So A is 4. Whatever's with x is your B. So B is 10. And then C, there's nothing there. It's there, it's just not visible, so it would be a 0. So when we plug it in, x equals negative B, so negative 10 plus or minus the square root of B squared, 10 squared minus 4 times A, which is 4, times C, which is 0. All divided by 2 times A, which is 2 times 4. So now we're just going to shrink this down. Negative 10 plus or minus, and then 2 times 4 in the bottom is 8. Now, you may notice when you multiply by 0, those are all going to disappear, because anything multiplied by 0, 0, you're going to be left with 10 squared, which is 100. But if you don't notice that, not a big deal. You've got a calculator to help you. All right, so in your calculator, remember, we're just typing in what's under the square root. We're not typing in the square root. That's right here. We just want to simplify this down. So 10 squared minus 4 times 4 times 0. And again, like I said, this part will disappear because you're multiplying by 0. You're left with 100. All right, now the square root of 100 is 10, not 50, not 25. So what's going to happen is, again, we have a perfect square. Square root of 100 is just 10, so we'll rewrite it as 10. We're going to split it up. X equals negative 10 plus 10 over 8. And x equals negative 10 minus 10 over 8. All right. Now, negative 10 plus 10, that's 0 over 8. 0 divided by 8 is going to be 0. The other one, negative 10 minus 10, would be negative 20 over 8. Let's simplify that down in our calculator. You can use the fraction, or you could do negative 20 divided by 8 and just leave it as negative 2.5, or math enter, negative 5 halves. All right, now, if we went back to the original problem, because remember, this is finding the zeros, whether you're doing it graphically or algebraically. If I went to y equals and typed in the original equation and said, what are the zeros? You'd be at least able to see this one. See, it's hitting at 0, and then we don't know what that is, but negative 2.5 seems pretty reasonable. All right. Now these next two, we're going to do the same thing. It's just this 166 needs to move to the other side. It's a positive 166, so if you want to make it a 0, we'll subtract 166. It doesn't have an x, so we're going to subtract it from the negative 2. So x squared plus 2x isn't changing. Negative 2 minus 166. If you're not sure, use your calculator. Negative 2 minus 166. Negative 168. Okay. Big numbers there, but that's okay. A would be 1. B would be 2. C would be negative 168. Holy cow. All right. So x equals negative b. So negative 2 plus or minus the square root of b squared. 2 squared minus 4 times a times negative c. again, we're using this formula right here, and we're plugging in, instead of using A, B, and C, wherever you see that variable, you're putting in the number. All right, instead of divided by 2 times A, it's 2 times 1. All right, let's make it look a little prettier. All right, so we have negative 2 plus or minus our square root, all divided by 2 times 1, or just 2. So now we're going to put just what's underneath the radical into the calculator. 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 168. 676. Now, let's check and see if it's a perfect square. So second x squared, you can just type it in or go up and hit enter. 26, perfect, it's a perfect square. The square root of 676 is 26. So we're going to split it up. One of your roots is negative 2 plus 26 over 2. And the other one's going to be x equals negative 2 minus 26 over 2. And again, if you want, you could put that whole thing in, or you can simplify the top and bottom and divide. So this would be 24 over 2. Half of 24 is 12. This would be negative 28 over 2. Half of negative 28 is negative 14. Okay. All right. Let's look at one more where we have to move stuff over. All right. So the 9x and the 5 have to go. So 9x is positive, so I'm going to subtract it. I also have to subtract it over here. Now, it has an x, and so does 4x, so that's where it's going to go. Okay, now the 5 is positive, so we're going to subtract that as well, because that would give us a 0 over here. But since I subtracted 5 on the right, I have to subtract 5 on the left. It doesn't have an x, so I'm going to subtract it from the 25, which also doesn't have an x. So when we rewrite it, the 2x squared stays. Negative 4 minus 9 is negative 13x. And 25 minus 5 is positive 20. So our A would be 2, our B would be negative 13, and our C would be 20. All right, so let's set it up. X equals negative B. Since B is negative 13, negative 13 would be 13. Plus or minus B squared, negative 13 squared, make sure it goes in parentheses, minus 4 times A, which is 2, times C, which is 20, all divided by 2 times A, 2 times 2. Now let's shrink it down. 13 plus or minus our square root all over 4. And we'll go to the calculator to see what this number would be. All right. So negative 13, close parentheses, squared, minus 4 times 2 times 20, 9. That looks a lot nicer. The square root of 9 is 3. Nice whole number still. So one of your roots is going to be 13 plus 3 over 4. The other one's going to be 13 minus 3 over 4. Okay, so 13 plus 3, that's 16, divided by 4 is 4. There's one of your zeros. The other one would be 10 divided by 4. Again, use your calculator if you're not sure. 10 divided by 4 is 2.5, or you can hit math, enter, and it would be 5/2. Whatever you prefer. So 2.5 or 5/2. All right, last question. All right, so the 2x has to go. We'll subtract it from the 7x. The negative 8 has to go. So we're going to add it to the negative 4. So over here you have equals 0. Over here you have 2x squared minus 9x plus 4. If you're not good with adding and subtracting the negatives, just use your calculator. So A is 2, B is negative 9, and C is 4. So x equals negative b. So negative 9 would end up being positive 9. Plus or minus the square root of b squared, negative 9 squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2 times a again. All right, let's simplify it down. 9 plus or minus a square root over 4. And to figure out what's under that square root, we'll just type in what's under here. Okay, so we have negative 9 squared, which you want to make sure to put in parentheses and close the parentheses before the squared, minus 4 times 2 times 4. 49, nice, another perfect square. Okay, so square root of 49 is 7. So we're going to do what we've been doing. Split it up. X equals 9 plus 7 divided by 4. And then x equals 9 minus 7 divided by 4. So 9 plus 7 is 16 over 4, which gives us 4. So one of your roots is x equals 4. The other one, 9 minus 7, is 2. 2/4 is the same as 1/2, or 0.5. 1/2, or 0.5. All right, so lots of practice with that. I'm going to have you do some practice of your own. Let me just remember which ones I wanted you to do here. On page 11, for the practice, I would like for you to try. Actually, they're all okay. I want you to try just the 4 questions. I don't want you to do the questions on page 12, just numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 on page 11. All right, if it helps, make sure you take a look at this. You could keep writing it over and over, but I would list your A, B, and C to start for each one. Like this one, A would be 2, B would be negative 9, C would be 4, and then plug those values in for each one. All of these have it so that it's already set equal to 0, so these are just the very basic ones. Use the notes that we took. Any of these notes will help you. You'll notice the steps are the same every single time, but you're not going to get any better if you don't try it. Let me know if you have any questions. I'd be happy to help. Those of you that have me for hybrid courses, we're going to be working on this in class next week. Have a great day, everybody.